Secret friends, unite!
Welcome to the Secret Friends Unite podcast, episode 420. This is your guide to the geek side, and I am one of your hosts, Todd Oxtra. Folks, chill out. We're not getting lit. It's not legal in Minnesota yet, so.
That's a bummer.
I am joined by Charlie Carden, my host from Michigan, where everything's legal, including cotton candy laced with rat poison.
Oh my God, it's the tastiest. You know, ironically, yes, here marijuana is legal here in Michigan. I don't care for it myself. Don't have any objections to people who use it. Not crazy about them using it in my presence because I have a powerfully strong sense of smell and it stinks. Do not care for it. So go out there, use it. But if you're coming over to my house or in my presence, I don't know what do you maybe spray yourself with a little Glade? You think that would clean it up?
Just put some patchouli on, just like an incense,
right
like in college. You're good to go.
Exactly,
Nobody will know. Nobody will know.
It'll smell that much better. There's no doubt about it.
Exactly. Yep, we're recording early on a Sunday afternoon. Just let you know, folks know, I will be out in Europe, so there'll be a gap in shows. So there'll be a gap in shows for maybe a week or two, but we'll be back after that. But with that, we've got a very exciting show. But you know what makes our show even better? When we talk about our patrons. We've been at the patron game for 2 months essentially now, which is great. It's been fun. It's growing. We've got new members. And we just want to say, if anyone is interested in our Patreon, we have stuff now that is going to start coming out to non-patrons that they can see what we're doing. Typically, once a month, we'll drop something there. And our first show that's going to do that is Friend Force 99, which is the Bad Batch show.
Yes. Yeah. Mark is going to drop that here. Could even be by the time you're listening to this, because we recorded that. It was about episodes 12 and 13, I think. And we're due to knock out another one that will come out on the Patreon, just because with so much Star Wars going on, if we tried to cram Bad Batch and Mando kind of all into one show, we would go over the limit that we have time to record. So we're spicing it up, but then we're turning around and releasing it on the normal flow as well. So stay tuned to your network flows. But yeah, other than that, we would love to have you join us over on the Patreon. We want to give our, as always, love to our friend at the Best Bud level. That would be Jamie Prinky, lovely lady. And our BFFs are the wonderful Nias family, Sean, Stella, and Henry. My dear friend, Missy Merchant, frequent contributor to the network. And our new friend, Andy Milliken, who I found out is not the person I thought I met on the cruise. It was somebody who was on the cruise who also knows Missy, because I then saw a picture of the two of them at an event in Pennsylvania last weekend. And I was like, oh, that was absolutely not who I thought it was. And it was not somebody that I knew. So Missy does a lot of promotion for this network, and she records with us. So we're super grateful for Missy, as we are for all of our Patreons.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been fun seeing we get people. And by the way, Andy, if you're listening, you are now on the patron wall on our website. We have it for all our patron producer levels. So we got there. You're there. I've got a picture of you that I picked from random. So if you have an identity you liked, I assume Star Trek. So you're a Star Trek person and you're there. So I'm glad that we can honor you. And more to come. But one thing I don't think now, did we give Andy her superpower last week, Charlie?
Yeah, we did that, but it was it was around assuming that she was the person
That's
I thought she
right.
was in Canada. So you know what? Have fun with it, because we had fun. We had fun doing it.
Yeah. Enjoy, Andy, your superpowers. If you're from Canada, you get like a +1. That's just like your abilities +1, like the Omega mutants that are the most powerful mutants. You get a +1 just being from Canada.
+1 Canada. Very good. Oh, one thing that, golly, I have to admit, I have turned over finding these covers and publishing to you entirely, because I don't know that I could do as good. Mine are super generic compared to this, but we have issue 20 of now I'm assuming this was actually the Teen Titans title and they just took on a fake name.
Nope.
This was a title that had more that had 20 issues is what you're saying, and potentially went on for a little bit longer. So anyway, this is DC Comics from November of 1983. Can't even believe I'm talking about this. Captain Carrot and his amazing zoo crew. Even above that title on this cover, which you can see if you're watching us on YouTube. All right, already, we admit it. We sold out. Meet a Teen Titan in this very issue. Is this the first appearance of Beast Boy?
No, it's not. No,
Okay.
And I can even give you a little background on this. So yes, So yes, this is Captain Carrot and his amazing zoo crew. They actually, this was an era that was very DC was doing some weird things, and you can even tell by this cover.
Doubt.
They said the very bottom cover they got like the little placard that says "The new DC, there's no stopping us now." Captain Carrot was kind of the era of like the Muppet Babies. Peter Porker was right around this time too. We're playing around with some goofy elements of like, what do they call it? Where you take a animal and give it human characteristics.
Anthropomorphize.
Exactly there. And so then we've got this team of for Captain Carrot. So Captain Carrot was actually introduced in Teen Titans. So this was back in the early 80s, 1982. Created by Roy Thomas, Charlie. Roy Thomas is a famous dude. He's done so many books. Avengers writer, all these things back in the day. Captain America writer too, I believe. But he worked at DC and Marvel. And then, New Teen Titans number 16 is where they made their first appearance. They are part of the many Earths that you would see. Part of Earth 26 is what this team is. 26? And it was an Earth where it was populated with cartoon animals, of course. And in this issue, if you want to know who the crew are, so we've got Captain Carrot, Alley Cadabra, so Alley Cat and Cadabra, Fastback, which I'm trying to think what Fastback would be. I guess a duck, maybe.
Razorback I don't know.
Well, and then we've got Pig Iron, which is a weird one because I guess it's Pig Iron is something where you make. Blacksmith would use pig iron to do some welding. Rubber Duck and Yankee Poodle. Rubber Duck, I don't know if that. I mean, maybe he stretches. I assume. I'm not sure what all of their.
I get the Yankee Poodle, Yankee Doodle Dandy kind of thing, and then it's probably like Captain Carter, Captain America, just like an athlete of some kind. Maybe doesn't really have powers, but is Earth 26 the home of Gorilla Grodd, and that's why he's the villain in this cover?
No, it's just a crossover. So they must have been at this point. I don't know why he showed up, to be honest, and why Beast Boy showed up. But Beast Boy was known as Changeling back then, so it's kind of a little weird. Okay. Yeah, a little different. This was a multiversal crossover, and unfortunately, this was the final issue of the series.
Yeah. Unfortunately. My God, it's just this is a series that wouldn't make it 5 issues today, or alternately, it would take off.
Exactly like Spider Gwen, or what is it, Jeff, the dog shark on Marvel's like this cute little thing, and now it's gotten really popular.
Devil Dinosaur and Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, or whatever. Yeah, so this would be a definite example of kind of throwing spaghetti to the wall and seeing what sticks, which is a prevalent attitude in Hollywood these days.
And this probably sold more than most comics do today, because comics were big back then. Yeah. So.
Right. Exactly. This is so much more competitive today. So anyway, speaking of competitive, there's one person in our employ who has no competition because she has no equal. Talking about our senior news correspondent, Madam Webb, 123 years young in 2023. She's down at the corner of Hollywood and Vine, got all the latest scoops without the shot of poop. Let's go down there and figure out what's going on.
Now it's time for Madam Webb's Rumors and News. Take it away, boys.
Thank you, Madam Webb. Well, we were talking about 420, and Madam Webb, that makes me think of your debut role, where you played the listless girl who got in too much trouble in that all-time classic, Reefer Madness. I don't know if that got you to teach you a lesson about, the horrors of drugs, but you wouldn't be here today without that little film.
My mother had a VHS copy of that movie, which I've never seen. And I don't know I mean, my mom was, in her 20s in the 70s. Everybody was smoking weed. I have no idea. I don't know. When I get to their age, when I get to be in my 70s, that's probably when we'll all just be like, oh, it's up my hips.
That's when we all start our illicit drug behaviors, get into crack, smack, heroin, all those things. Why not? Because you know what? You need a retirement plan, and apparently it's going to be jail for people these days.
Oh, you're right. Hey, you know what? It pays the bills, doesn't it? Because you're
3 squares in a cot. Yeah.
3 hots in a cot. You got it. All right. Boy, this is really taking a turn. Okay, up first, we have 2 of my favorite comedic types, the magnificent Patton Oswalt and Kumail Nanjiani, among newest additions to the cast of Ghostbusters Afterlife sequel. I really enjoyed that film. Came out in 2021. Was it a summer movie in 2021?
No, it was a November, like Thanksgiving era, because I remember seeing it with my sister and her family when I visited Michigan for Thanksgiving 2 years ago. Nice.
Yeah, I love that. They did really what none of the other Ghostbusters films did successfully, was be good and recapture some and kind of recapture some.
Yeah, the post original. Yeah, there was that. Yeah, it's been a mixed bag.
Right. And so, that was a fun story. It had to do with the estranged daughter of the late Egon Spangler moving into, after he passes away, his estranged daughter, along with her 2 kids, move into his house out in the middle of nowhere. And that film had great ties back to the original plot line with the Ivor Shandor and the evil guy who, had the skyscraper in New York that was a gateway to hell and all this different stuff. And so you got Kid Ghostbusters, and then all the originals showed up, as opposed to the 2016 reboot, which just went over like a fart in church. My son really loved that movie, but he was also 8 years old. So
for a lot of kids, I mean, watching probably the original Ghostbusters, it's not exactly that great, but for them, this is their Ghostbusters. So I could see them being more excited about that, where it was like modern special effects, Chris Hemsworth doing a dance. Yeah.
Right, exactly. But for the your core group of folks of our age, it was practically a nerd revolt. People hating on it that much. But anyway, so Nanjiani, of course, we've seen him recently in the Eternals for Marvel. He was in the Obi-Wan Kenobi as basically a con artist. And then, what can be said about Patton Oswalt? He's my spirit animal. He's my guy. Love just about everything he does. He's been in and out of Marvel. He's not really done anything with Star Wars. He's in Star Trek in a couple of different capacities, but it was something that had to do with one of the animated properties. It was either Lower Decks or Prodigy. I think it was Lower Decks, but he's not had a live action role in either Star Wars or Star Trek. So I feel like it's only a matter of time. Only a matter of time.
Yeah, this could be good. Hopefully it is. This one's the sequel. Apparently will go to New York because we've got that with Ernie Hudson. Essentially, he's kind of got connections now in the city. He's staving the firehouse. This could go many different ways. Do they bring back all the people that showed up at the last movie at the end? Do they do that and they basically then become the leaders of the new Ghostbuster, or do they just say, no, we're not actually going to be in this film, or maybe we have some very small cameos, but it's going to be about recruiting the next generation, which I thought they would always do that, or make a franchise of the Ghostbusters, make it international. But we do have a different director for this film. It's not going to be Jason Reitman. He's just going to be writing and producing it, but we've got Gil Keenan directing, and Paul Rudd and Carrie Coon will return from the previous movie. So we don't know anything about the kids, which is fine. They need to go to school. They need to go to college. That was fine for that. And then after that, where they go with it and other people that are going to be in this, we don't know yet. But hopefully, this is good. I mean, it's hard to keep franchises solid when you've had so many limited versions of success, essentially the first movie and then this movie. The rest have all kind of been a mishmash. So we'll see if this happens. They could pull in from there's been comics and cartoons. They could pull in from some of those as just like fan service if they really wanted to as well.
I was listening to one of the podcasts I listen to, and the Do Go On people, a guy who does a podcast, one of their guys does something called Primates. And so, which is just about, it's silly, and it's just about stuff that monkeys have been in related to media or whatever. And so he pulled back from the original Ghostbusters cartoon series from the 70s, which had to do with
Tracy.
Yes, it was ape based or ape adjacent, whatever it is. Oh my goodness. Oh, people do love apes. Well, people don't love or ironically love the subject of this next story. Now let me ask you something. When the Tommy Wiseau is who we're talking about. Now we saw a dramatization of his life and his career back in what was that like? Was that 3 or 4 years ago? With
it was
Franco?
called the disaster.
Yeah,
artist?
the disaster. Yeah, exactly. Because he's kind of a rich weirdo, or maybe he is, maybe he isn't. Who made this really bizarre independent film called The Room, and it was a number of years back, wasn't it?
Yeah, Disaster Artist came out in 2017,
and
then The Room came out. I'm going to say it's early
it said 20 years ago. Yeah,
2003. Yeah,
yeah, and he's done nothing since. And now he is making I'm assuming low budget disaster film called Big Shark. Now we watched a trailer. It was funny. We were laughing about this in the pre-roll. We watched a trailer. It was a 2-minute clip that was a 1-minute wind
trailer
up to this film. Yeah. That showed two guys boxing, intercut with basically pull arounds and distant shots around what I'm going to assume is probably New Orleans, because they make mention of the bayou or somewhere in that general vicinity. And then these guys continue to box, and then all of a sudden a really poorly animated CGI shark falls on one of them and eats him. And then they're running, and there's a flood of water, and this big shark comes out. Now, that's not even really the shocking part of this trailer. And Todd, you hadn't watched it any more than this 1 minute, because the second minute is those same two guys standing around with no shirts on, in black and white, wearing his branded underpants and talking about what a great guy he is. This clip, you got to put this clip in the show notes, I assume, because I think it has to be seen to be believed or disbelieved, because oh my goodness.
Well, yeah. I was just like looking at the trailer. I was just taking, I just have it on the background and see them. Yeah, during this, we're going to talk a little bit more about the actual thing. But this part about Tommy Wiseau's, he is a con man. We know, we talked about he could be the modern Colonel Tom Parker, weird accent. Don't know where he's from. He says he's like from Baltimore or whatever. And we know that's not an accent. Sure. So, and he funds this thing. We don't know how he gets his money. We don't know. He's a very strange man. But when they show him, they've got, when he's pitching his underwear, he shows up and now he's got like really long hair, sunglasses. It's a very weird look. Looks like one of those old guys that tries to be cool and hip, like frosts his tips.
The old guy in the club, like Chris.
And he's wearing like a Letterman jacket, which is like, hey, fellow kids.
Yeah, hey, fellow kids.
It's exactly that. But yeah, so he's an odd guy. So it just makes sense that he introduces this big movie. He's the first thing he's done since The Room 20 years later. And half of it is a pitch for his underwear.
Oh, my God.
God, I mean, I wonder if there's maybe we can sponsor that on the podcast, Charlie. Manscaped didn't work out, but, Tommy Wiseau underwear ad deal. I
guess. I mean, as long as we obviously all end up with some samples so we can walk around and talk about how great it is.
Yeah.
I'll put it right next to the Manscaped underpants in my underwear drawer.
Yeah. I'm going to give you the tagline for this movie. It says, Please. 3 firefighters, George, Patrick, and Tim, must save New Orleans from a gigantic shark. Can New Orleans survive? That is it. And essentially, it is, as you would imagine, the budget is a budget that you would see like for a movie that you don't know how it got made. The shark was probably made out of foam rubber, but with like CGI, like background effects.
I think foam rubber would have helped the shark a lot, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because if you look at this screen cap at the top of this article, the two guys they're fuzzy. The lighting is bad. They're fuzzy. And you look at the shark, the one guy looks like he's holding his hand up to stop it, but the jawline of the shark looks like it continues to go up, and it's dropped on this background. I just don't even know how it was created, what it's supposed to look like. It's just, we got to see it. We got to see it.
Because, I think this is, we're talking about like all the AI and the chat GPT. I think this is going to be the first AI created movie where he just says, hey, AI man, make me shark movie with boxers. And that's what you get.
It's, you said boxers, but I thought, and so will the boxers then just be underpants?
Well,
or will
no,
they
there's
be
actual boxers, like
Oh,
professional boxers. Well,
okay.
people
No,
boxing,
I
which
think
then
you
led
just
to boxer shorts. Yes.
make it with underpants running around. I think that
Yeah.
that could be a bird of a different feather, a shark of a different fin,
Well,
if
you
you
know, the
will.
good thing is you'll all be able to watch this movie. Well, you won't all, because it opens on April 2nd at one movie theater. And then it's going to go around and do like a theater, like Kevin Smith does with his movies. He goes like to different theaters, shows it, and then it looks like it'll finally be out in theaters probably later this year after it does its film tour.
Oh my God. Unbelievable that this is a thing. Somebody gave this guy money, or he has some funding source that we're never going to know what it is. But you know what? It's art, man. It happens.
It's all that
And
TikTok money. He's actually behind TikTok.
oh my gosh, yes. Well, he's going to get shut down with whatever's going on with that now. They're trying to shut that down in Congress or whatever. Make TikTok.
Oh
go
yeah,
away.
watching those watching Congress members talk about technology is like the best thing in the world, because they don't know how it works.
Right.
They
And
are
it's
goofy.
scary.
Yeah,
It's
a series
scary.
of pipes. Yes, it's all series pipes. Yes.
The internet is a box, like on the IT crowd.
Oh God, yes, absolutely, yes.
Oh my goodness! All right, what else we got here?
Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is Zack Snyder has essentially walked away from DC now. It's official, folks. Stop trying to make it happen. It is official.
Yes, he walked away. He didn't get the boot.
Well, he had to step away because of family issues, and then he got a chance to redo his own movie, Justice League. Yeah,
I thought you were inferring that we're like, Zach, you got to stay, man. I don't think anybody was trying to keep him around.
Oh, Charlie, do not go into hashtag Snyder Cut people. They are like a cult, and they will come after you. It's just scary.
Boy.
So stay away from that nonsense. Well,
hashtag don't hurt me, Snyder cult.
Oh yeah, they're crazy. And if you're listening to this, I mean that like crazy lovable. So don't kill us.
Give him a hug.
Yeah. So he has moved on to Netflix. He's already made, was it The Army of the Dead? He made that one spinoff with the one guy who was the sailor. He was the safe cracker. They made a spinoff of that. Then it was called like the King of Thieves or the Jack of all Thieves or something like that. It was a spinoff, that one character. He was like the German kid who could crack the safes.
Okay.
He was a character within it. They made a spinoff on Netflix, and that's out. If you're curious, you can watch that later, Charlie. But he is making another project in Netflix, and it is called Rebel Moon. And this is based on his apparent pitch to Star Wars, Lucasfilm. So now it's officially happening, and it's going to be so big now, it's actually two parts. So we know Snyder likes big movies, and they take like 5 hours, and then they get cut down. So this is kind of funny, because now Snyder has complete creative control. He doesn't have to listen to anybody. Execs are not like going down the throat, like you have to do this.
He's drunk with George Lucasian power, except for he doesn't have George Lucasian money, does he? So
he's doing well. He's doing well.
Yeah, I mean, where's the money come from? It just
Netflix.
I know. Well, that's what I'm talking about. Where's their money come from? I never can really
subscriptions that they keep charging you more every year.
Oh, that's how they're doing it. I just, I will always in some way struggle with the whole and we're making new content, and we're making essentially a big budget science fiction film with the effects and this and that, and it's just like with all the people that that scam Netflix passwords, how much money they're not making, which of course they're finally turning all that around. But I don't know. They have investors, they have advertisers, but it's just, I'm just always kind of boggled by the process of how they really figure out if something is a huge success or not. It's streaming numbers,
it's views.
But it's views, but then it's like, that obviously goes into their overall marketing pitch. They can say, well, Zack Snyder made this movie for us and it had X number of views and ours such and such sailed up and blah, 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 and give us money.
Absolutely. It's really like they'll say, oh, if you subscribe to Netflix, oh, this is coming out now. You like that, come back and watch again. So it's keeping subscribers is the hardest part. And that's the biggest thing, because you get to a point where your growth stops. Like Disney Plus is going to probably hit that soon, where the growth is essentially just flatlined, because everybody wants Disney Plus has already watched it or watched what they wanted to and already subscribed. So this is how they do it.
That's very true. When we play, streaming service roulette, my wife loves dumb Netflix movie. So it's like when we flew out to California, she had downloaded some movies and I was looking over her shoulder. I'm like, oh, I'll watch this with you. There's this dumb movie about this rich New York family, and the dad dies and he had a secret because he had a guy kept in a bunker, and it was the guy who was it was William Catt, played the guy, the greatest American hero. You got to go look this one up. It's so bad. But
anyways, yes. So it's all about the subscriber games, and we know Netflix has played around with putting movies in the theater. They've won some Oscars now, so I think this is more of their. I think they're going to change their model eventually to have things theatrical, and then they come to the service. I don't think it would hurt anybody's. It would hurt anyone to say, "Oh, wait, it's not on the service right away." Right. It's probably going to be a month and then it comes on. So I know that's what theater owners want. They want more content because there's still a drought of movies. It's been better lately, but there's still not as many movies as they'd love. So that this movie, Rebel Moon, originally was going to be one movie. It was so big, it had to be cut in two. And now, essentially, they're going to be making an R-rated cut to this movie. And it's an R-rated version of each of its two parts. So I don't know if that means it was like X-rated first and now they're making R-rated, or it was PG-13 and they're going to add more blood and cursing and nudity to make it an R-rated.
I mean, just pump it in. R-rated sci-fi just kind of, it just generally kind of takes a tilt towards sci-fi horror, which, like Aliens was great, but it also really wasn't very graphic. But I think in a lot of ways it was the language and the different stuff, kind of some scary images, but just out and out like grindhouse graphic, violent sci-fi, not a huge bag for me.
Well, I mean, I can't remember what Dune was, but I mean, you can do mature language. Right. It doesn't have to be like gross out. It can just be more mature things that, sci-fi potentially should be a little bit. I mean, you can do that. Right. You can have more mature without being like torture porn or like that.
I love it when you say gross out. I'm like, oh, like sci-fi, like American Pie. It's like a gross out movie.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, of course you're going to have like those things, but I mean, I think R-rated sci-fi can be great if it's done right. Versus we had to take away our ambition because we wanted to hit a certain rating. So it all depends on what you're trying to go for. If it is trying to like, it's the unrated cut, as they sometimes say, is it just for titillation? What's the artistic merit, and does it make it better? And that's what we want. And just for anyone who wants to know what this movie is going to be about, it says this is kind of like your synopsis. When a peaceful colony on the edge of the galaxy finds itself threatened by the armies of the tyrannical regent Belisarius, they dispatch a young woman with a mysterious past named Cora to seek out warriors from neighboring planets to help them take a stand. It's pretty much boilerplate rebels standing up. It is essentially not new from Star Wars. Star Wars borrowed it from Kurosawa.
They have to fight Donald Belisario. Oh man.
Yes. Yep. Belisarius. Yep.
All the powers of NCIS to fight.
Exactly. So it's nothing, like probably just this, like I always said, the synopsis is never like the thing that says, oh, that's unique. There's very few of those. It's how you do it and how the cast performs the script and everything in the direction. If you like Snyder, you're going to get more of that type of filmmaking. So I wouldn't expect him to be like, now he's doing his like think piece. I think he knows what he does well. And a lot of people like it. Lots of slow-mo, lots of like uber important, uber serious, sometimes black and white, sometimes weird, boxing like 4x3, or we're going to do it really tall and skinny. Sometimes you get that too. But
tall, skinny, slow-mo swearing.
Exactly. But the cast is pretty good. So we've got Sophia Boutella from The Mummy, Damon Hansu, Ed Skrein from Deadpool, Ray Fisher from Justice League, Charlie Hunnam, Sons of Anarchy, Anthony Hopkins. Wow, they got him in Charlie.
I was going to say he's probably probably a voiceover. He's probably the wacky robot or something. So
probably
literally phone it in.
Yeah. Carrie Elwes, Corey Stoll, Jenna Malone, Frothy from Frothy. That's a weird name from Hawkeye.
Isn't that what you get on top of your coffee? A little frothy.
Yeah, and then this is a screenplay by Shay Hutton, Kurt Johnson, and alongside Zack Snyder. And this is going to drop December 22nd, 2023.
Merry Christmas.
Exactly. So we'll see how this goes. And if it's two parts, I'm not sure if it's going to be, they're going to do part one first, or they're going to drop them both at the same time. But if it's Netflix and they want to be smarter, drop one and then come back a few months later or a year and get part two.
Yeah. Rock and roll. Good deal. Well, okay, moving on. Next story. Can't say that this is really breaking my heart, but it does kind of correlate with something you just said about Disney Plus kind of hitting a wall. Indiana Jones spinoff has been reportedly canceled at Disney Plus. This was a report that had been from some months back that they were looking to continue it on the streamer with some kind of series that would not include Harrison Ford, and those ideas have essentially ground to a halt. But yes, the source on this is a podcast.
Yeah, well, Insider Jeff Schneider. Yeah. He's the source. He was on a podcast. Yeah,
Insider Jeff Schneider. Oh, that's man.
That's a tagline. I like that.
Yeah, put that on a business card. And then this is coming on the heels that the streamer already canceled Willow, which we knew about. Todd, I never ended up watching Willow, and you just kind of dabbled, didn't you? You were kind of like meh.
I've continued to watch it despite not really enjoying it.
Oh, it's really you? Is it dumb fun? Is that
it is a Disney Plus ass show, and that's the thing I'm going to say. Disney Plus, I hate to say it, is a lot of mediocre content with a lot of artistic integrity, really a good vision, good scripts, and they don't even look very good half the time. It's like it just feels like a limp effort. Yeah, apparently that's been canceled, and the director, though, I think he's trying to hold out hope that it might get canceled, but I have seen no one say it's a great show, please watch. It is essentially dropped. No one cared, and if they're talking about it, they're basically saying it's not very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I'm a terrible example because I never even got around to watching the Willow again. So I just all I really remember about Willow is that I've seen it and the spoof from the Goldbergs.
Exactly. Yeah.
The Goldberg kid was going to see it, and he thought this is going to be the next Star Wars, and it is, in fact, as Morgan Freeman might come in and say at this point, it was in fact not the next Star Wars.
It's a Willow is a good thing to say. Yeah,
it's a Willow.
It apparently didn't matter who directed. So sorry, Ron Howard, I gave you too hard a time. Apparently, no one can make Willow good. Someone can make Willow good, just not these people. But Charlie, going back to the Insider, Jeff Snyder, his tagline on Twitter is the Insnyder, and he actually is a film critic for the LA for magazine. So he does have connections. So at least we'll make him legit.
So he's an actual journalist. So all right. As an Indiana Jones super fan, I'm excited. I'm getting that line of Indiana Jones figures drops this week. I'm going to get the first ones in the mail. I've had them pre-ordered for a while, so in the mail from Amazon, which is not the mail. It's the mail's enemy. But no, I'm looking forward to that. And I've come around. Somebody was asking me about the Indiana Jones, the Dial of Destiny, which we're getting this summer. I'm excited about that as well. Cautiously optimistic, a little bit more optimistic than cautious. If that movie is a huge hit, I would feel like this could be something that gets turned around. If they felt like, if that movie comes out and it's a huge flop, then this will definitely be canceled and we'll never hear from it again. But what Indiana Jones anything has ever flopped? You know what I mean? But then again, it's also been 15
Crystal
years.
Skull.
Was still did good box office.
Okay,
I mean, if you were to look it up, I mean, when I say a flop, I guess I'm not talking about a critical success.
Okay,
because again, it's an adventure movie, and so the yardstick by which you're measuring it is the bucks that it's bringing in. So that's my question.
Yes, but typically, if it's not critically acclaimed and it didn't get great word of mouth, typically you don't go back and make another one right away, because then it's like you get the diminishing returns like the Transformers, right? It's just like, it made a lot of money, but man, there's a stink on it. Like kind of Shazam too, right? You're seeing there's a stink right now on Shazam. And
it's funny that you bring that up because, as we do our summer movie wager, John, our third partner, had brought that up this week that we've got to start working on that because we're a little over 30 days away from the beginning of the summer movie season. And my question is, The Flash, in the research I've done, is looking to post really big numbers. But my question is Shazam basically going to hurt that? I'm curious.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, we could go all in on like what's going on. Do most people understand what's even happening in the DC universe?
No. I mean, how could they? Yeah, because,
exactly.
Yeah, John Q. moviegoer is going to be like, it's a superhero movie, and I'm excited. But that same logic didn't save Shazam 2.
Correct. I just think it was 4 years. The sequel should have came out far sooner. Apparently it was done earlier at the pandemic. And plus it was also it opened on the weekend of the NCAA tournament. That is a thing where you're watching basketball. A lot of people that are just the sports watcher, that's what they're doing. They're not going to the theater. So,
And that's a
Yeah.
hard land to say, well, we'll get it back in the second week. No, you fired your shot and it's gone.
Yeah.
Certainly there are movies that pick up legs. Obviously, the longer they stay in the theater, but it's not starting so weak and then suddenly like we actually picked up, 150% in week 2. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it should have came out in January, to be honest, because right now there's a movie there's so many movies coming out right
March
now.
was so loaded. Yeah. So
exactly.
Loaded.
Should have came out in January. Nothing was happening in January, and it would have probably done much better. But at this point, So anyway, I was going to say
Crystal
on
Skull.
this, in regards to a TV series or doing something more with the Indiana Jones. I mean, Lucasfilm used to do a lot of different things. They used to make used to be more than just Star Wars and Indiana Jones. They had other projects that came in that were a lot of fun. Obviously, Willow did not good, but they'd done other things.
Red Tails,
not Red Tails, or that weird animated musical thing that George Lucas, the last thing he did. That was a weird one. But I mean, if you think about it, a spin-off of Indiana Jones and those classic characters, not just Indiana Jones, could work. We talk about Phoebe Waller-Bridge and her character, where it could go. Ke Huy Quan just won an Oscar. People love him. Seeing a character from Indiana Jones that was left behind, and what did they do with their lives, and maybe went on adventures in different eras and different adventures, could be fun too. So,
I agree. Yeah, I tell you, that showrun character was so random because it came along in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, which was technically a prequel, so it was the first film in the series chronologically. But by the time we get around to Raiders, which obviously actually came out first, and then we get on to the other two films, he's never mentioned again. He doesn't exist. So did he? But you don't want to think, he died or something. You don't want it to be like that. But what happened with the character? I don't know.
Yeah.
But you're right. I would think that there'd be a good chance with, I don't want to screw up his name. I'm just going to call him Short Round. Short Round, the character could return because the actor is doing so great. So who knows? We've
had, could be the Frasier of Indiana Jones, right?
Exactly. So I would be curious to see when the film comes out, if it's a huge success, if this doesn't, flip it around and they're like, we want to cash, because you're right, they want to cash in, they want something that's a big hit, because The Mandalorian is, I'm sure, their biggest hit to date, and they're looking for the next thing that's going to be outside of Star Wars. So we shall see.
Do you want another Labyrinth, Charlie? Lucasfilm made that. A lot of people don't realize that.
I know people who are so crazy for that movie, and I watch it and I'm like, Jennifer Connelly, yay! The rest of the movie, meh. It's just
David Bowie's passed away. I mean, it's hard to replace him. They made the Radioland Murders. They made they didn't make many other things, but they made Howard the Duck, obviously, of course. Now owned by Disney. So there we go.
Oh my goodness.
So we shall see. Lucasfilm is in a weird spot right now. It sounds like they're putting all of their resources around Star Wars again, which probably makes the most sense because it seems like there's some heavy lifting to do there. And then that kind of gets us to our last story, which is we've been hearing a lot of things about, Star Wars is having a heck of a time getting a new movie secured. There's lots of rumors. We did hear that Damon Lindelof was rumored. He wrote a script actually for a Star Wars film, and now he's gone. Apparently it didn't work out. Damon Lindelof, he did Lost. He did many other awesome things. He did Watchmen. I mean, the guy is very, very talented. And I think putting talented people on Star Wars makes a lot of sense. But now we've got actually the writer, maybe creator of Peaky Blinders, Stephen Knight.
Did you just call it Peaky Blinders?
Blinders. Yeah, like a blintz.
Blinders? It's a blintz? Oh, like
Blinders,
a blintz.
yes.
It's like a pastry, isn't it? Peaky Blinders.
Well, he is now writing a new Star Wars movie. So I honestly think
at this point, Todd, let's get pencils moving and write our own Star Wars movie, because I think we're going to have just as good of a chance of the fact that they're shopping around to every Tom, Dick, and Anakin Skywalker in Hollywood. Everybody's like, "No, I'm writing a Star Wars movie." It's been 4 years since film cameras rolled, since movie cameras rolled around a Star Wars movie. It's been 3 years since one came out, to a resounding super wet fart that was the Rise of Skywalker. I just, the hardcores, and it's funny because we talk to a lot of the hardcore people, obviously over on Holocron. Mark is a very hardcore Star Wars guy. I am sometimes the voice of you rub off on me a little bit, but not that much, because Todd, I love you, but you're not a Star Wars fan, and I get it, because there's a lot of it not to be that's not so great. I can be a little bit more objective, where Mark is to Star Wars is what I'm to Star Trek. I'll just be like, but they still
even if it's bad, I love it. Yeah. Objectivity kind of gets thrown out the window, because it's like, I will take any Star Wars because I want Star Wars. And I'm like, I will take good Star Wars, and the rest I'm just like, why would I even bother if it's just a franchise that I know of? Because there's just too much good content to waste time on stuff that's just not very good just because, I watched that as a kid. I'm like, that's the worst idea. It's like, that is the worst way to spend your time, because in a sense, what you're saying, I have no taste. I will just take any you give me. Yeah.
And definitely don't go back and watch things you watched as a kid, like old cartoons, because we had this conversation about like the Transformers, like you and I were talking about the Beast Wars from the 90s, which we weren't kids then, but I saw there's a new line, and the T-Rex is purple and it's Megatron, and I'm like, what the hell is this? And you're like, well, it was good for what we had back then. And I'm like, what kind of statement is that to make? G.I. Joe was great for what we had back in 1985, but you can't even watch the animation now because it's so, there's that famous clip of, there's a wall and a couple of Cobra soldiers walk past it, and then a couple of dinosaurs go through the wall, but they don't knock it down. So it's just, the animation is just, it was of its time and potentially to stay there. But anyway, back on Star Wars. Yeah, you're right. I can pick some nits. Book of Boba Fett, didn't find much redeemable about it. I was about 50% on the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. I would be 100% against it if they made another Obi-Wan Kenobi season, because they were playing with fire, trying to stick things in the continuity in between. But erring on the side of caution when it comes to a Star Wars film, and Mark has said this on Twitter, and so I know that he and I feel the same about this. What if all of their trying to, doing these great, it's like football tryouts, right? You want the best, and my God, I'm using a sports analogy. You obviously want your best player to be your quarterback, right? You want to have your best defensive line, your best offensive line. Todd, stop me if I veer way off the path here with sports stuff. You really want to get it right. You want to have the best team that you can to move forward. So what if they're running through all these people, some of the most talented people in the entertainment industry, until they actually find something that clicks that they can roll on that is going to be fantastic?
Sure.
I'm super okay with if we don't. I mean, what was the gap between Return of the Jedi and the Phantom Menace? Almost 15 years.
But that wasn't when they were owned by Disney, who has franchise that continues to push stuff out and wants a return on investment.
It's a sausage machine.
That was when Lucas just got bored and didn't want to do it. He said, "I'll wait till next technology." I have no pressure to make something new because I have billions of dollars that I can just sit on.
I'm good.
And I think we can't use what happened before Disney bought them as any type of.
And Disney is scrambling because their funds, their investment is not paying off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Lucas didn't care what people thought. He could do whatever he wanted. He obviously he wanted more yes men to just agree with what he wanted, and said, I could care less if you think my stuff sucks. This is what I want. Yes, George, we're going to make it.
Yeah, exactly.
Disney's in a different boat. If something's not liked, they're not going to keep making more of the same thing just because they can. They want to get audiences and love it and come back and make money. So I'm just curious to see what they do with this idea. To your point, if they're going to wait, I don't know if Bob Iger likes to wait. Because Disney is in huge debt, $47 billion. He came back because he's got to right the ship. And when you've got a franchise that is no longer putting out movies and it's only putting content on Disney Plus, which ultimately it's kind of peaks for where it's not making money. It's not making new revenue that you can then put on Disney Plus later. So he's got to say like, well, what's going on? Why can you guys not figure out what's going on? And it just seems like LucasArts doesn't know what they want until they see it. And it's like, if you don't know that, I mean, what if Kevin Feige says, I'm just going to stop making movies? Because I don't know. We got to wait. I mean, then if Marvel stopped producing, they did exactly what Star Wars did, Disney would be in ridiculous pain because you just can't run a company that doesn't so at this point, I'm hoping this goes well, but I do feel like there's a lot of Star Wars fans that would be okay if there was never another movie. because you can see how excited they get with just essentially treading water is what I call Star Wars right now. It's treading water always in the same areas. It's not looking beyond. It's not because they're so scared of, well, what if it's something we don't like rather than what if it's the next best thing?
Well, I mean, and I hate to throw Star Wars or Star Trek up there as kind of a counterpoint, but Star Trek swings for the fences, and they have they've had up to 5 different programs on the air that are all completely different. An animated show set in a time period, an edgier show set in the far future, a little bit more bread and butter kind of show set in the timeline of the original series. You know what I mean? And people love it on different things, and people can say, I love Discovery, and I'm sorry it's going away, or I love Prodigy because I introduced my kids to Star Trek watching that. And they have all the heritage program that I can still watch all of the old shows with my kids and create new fans and stuff that I hear obviously running the club and doing shows and then going out and being on the cruise and meeting other Star Trek fans, where you're right, there's just this perpetual fear of branching out and getting into new territory for the Star Trek people, or the Star Wars people. So yeah, I get it. And in some ways, I'm of similar mind about it. I've enjoyed the content. It's nice to know that they could do, assuming Disney Plus sticks around and they don't go out of business because they're losing so much money, that they could give us varying different content. But yeah, they've got to, blank or get off the pot, as it were.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out at Celebrations. I mean, I think that's where they're going to hopefully announce some things because, I mean, there's a large group of Star Wars fans that are more casual, like myself. I'd say I'm a fan of Star Wars. I'm not like a person that's like, I don't know what the Star Wars is. I know what Star Wars is. It's just what amount of enjoyment it brings me and how impassioned I am about it. It's a different, I'm not a fanatic. I am like a casual fan, and I will really get excited. Addict? Yeah, but I would say there's more of people like me than there are. I think the really fanatic people are a smaller percentage, and Disney wants the rest of the people. And how do you get the rest of the people on there? Not to watch a 5 hour, 5 hour limited series. It's a big movie. Right. So, and that's where Star Wars for me, it's a big movie. The rest of the stuff is perfectly fine, but it's like watching a soap opera where you get maybe a plot point every that something happens. So
putting the wars back in the stars. Exactly. Yeah.
So good luck. Yeah. Good luck, Mr. Peaky Blinders. Good Peaky luck. Blinders. And hopefully you got something to share, and we'll see the next big thing, because you know what? Nothing gets people more excited about than a Star Wars movie trailer, because they don't happen that often.
Right. It'll even make you sit through to pay for a ticket to Wing Commander.
That should be your bad trip to the movie, Charlie.
Oh, only if you do it with us.
I would do that one. I would do that one to revisit the horror.
There we go. That is going to be episode 3. After we do Showgirls, you're doing that one. I'm going to change our schedule. That one will be it. We're going to put out the Showgirls one in next month. And then the one after that is going to be Wing Commander. Thanks, Todd. Good deal. All right, that's it for the news. It's time for us to move on. Got to get out that Fuber app, the Feeble Uber app. Get some old fogey to drive us down to Skunk Town, Nastyville. The Geek Easy awaits. So let's go.
Talk nerdy to me. Talk nerdy to me.
We're sitting in the Geek Easy, drinks are poured, and we are ready to get our nerd on. So, Charlie, looks like you had a look back at the olden times of film.
We did. Well, yeah, one is a newer production, and another one is an old movie that April said, you've not seen this movie, we're going to watch this movie. And we did last night. But we started just this morning. We watched 3 episodes of what I'm assuming is either 8 or 10 episodes of The Offer, which is available to you on Paramount Plus. It is about the genesis of the Godfather movie being made in the early 1970s. And April looked into it, and it's actually a fairly accurate retelling of what actually happened. So it's not this wild tale, but centers around a producer character played by Miles Teller, he's awesome. He was in Top Gun Maverick. He was in the Fantastic Four film that we will never talk about. He was in the movie where he was the drummer kid. He's done a lot of good stuff.
Did he have a mustache?
He does not have a. Oh my God! No, I can't remember. I don't think so. He should though, because he's kind of hair lip Steve, isn't he? But whatever, who cares? He also has these weird scars on his face. Like I don't know, maybe he was in a car crash.
I don't know.
I noticed that when I was seeing him in the Top Gun film as well. So, but anyway, I really like him. But we also have Dan Fogler, who's an actor I love playing. Not Robert De Niro, but who was the director? Scorsese.
Yep.
Which is funny because Scorsese directs the second film we're going to talk about. I love Dan Fogler.
No, Coppola. Francis Ford Coppola.
Coppola, there you go. Scorsese directed the film I'm going to talk about, not the same guy. But they ran in the same circles. They were part of the same social group. George Lucas was part of that. Spielberg was part of that back in that day. But yeah, it's all about getting this film made and how it so far ran in the face of the Italian decency league or whatever. They had mobsters threatening the life of this producer, and it's all about his struggle to get it made. And one of the other characters, and I chuckled because I had to play this audio for April, was the producer of this film was Robert Evans, and Patton Oswalt does a bit about Robert Evans that makes me practically pee my pants every time I hear it. It's so funny. If you go to YouTube and you just type in Patton Oswalt, Robert Evans, you will get, it'll just play audio just with a picture from his album cover. And it's a bit of about 5 minutes, and oh my God. So yeah, sounds like to quote, and it's really evident in this thing of the 3 episodes we've watched, that Robert Evans was really not the nicest guy in the whole wide world, and it's really illustrated, I think, in this portrayal.
There's a movie about him too called, I think, The Kid Gets in the Picture.
The Kid Stays in the Picture, which Patton talks about. Yeah, it was a book, and then but anyway, he's
a funky looking dude too. He looks very, he looks unique.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And he was, Ally McGraw was his girlfriend in the early 70s. He put her in Love Story, which was a movie with Ryan O'Neal, which I've never seen. But
God, Ryan O'Neal's horrible.
Yeah.
He's horrible.
Oh, God, shots fired.
I know. He just, I don't know how he got so famous, because he's not a good actor. He's been in some really stinkers. Oh, boy.
Oh, my God. That's funny. You remind me of the mean tweet that Ethan Hawke read. He says, Ethan Hawke is one of those guys who should have been famous, but he slipped through the cracks, and people were like, okay. So that's your Ryan O'Neal. But anyway, it's this series is compelling. Again, it's on Paramount Plus. It came out maybe 6 months ago or something. So we're enjoying it. I recommend it. I'd say check it out. And the other thing was, it's a very old movie, so I won't really drone on about it. And Todd, you said you also have not seen this.
Correct.
And this is a classic movie from the mid to late 70s called Taxi Driver, again, directed by... We just mixed it up. Who are our 2 directors?
Scorsese.
This is a Scorsese film. Yeah, stars Robert De Niro, who is in The Godfather 2, not the first one, as a ex-Marine taxi driver in New York City. In the actual, like, New York in the 70s has this great reputation of being absolutely disgusting,
corny, gross, crime.
This was filmed at that time, but this movie also has a very young Harvey Keitel, which blew my mind. Sybil Shepherd, before she hit it big in Moonlight, about 10 years before that. Albert Brooks didn't look like him at all. But
what?
He was a young man.
I didn't know he was in that. Wow, I love Albert Brooks.
And then, of course, it's most famous for Jodie Foster, who was 12, portraying
it's crazy.
A tween prostitute. So it is very edgy. The end of it is there's a huge shootout at the end. Sorry, I don't really feel like that's spoiling much, but you kind of get the picture. Todd, it's on HBO. I recommend that you watch it. It's compelling.
Sure.
It's compelling. I really, really enjoyed it. And again, I know this is a film that's as old as we are, so it's not like I'm breaking any new ground, but I'm not going to do spoilers because I really want Todd to watch it.
And I think that is something that we always forget. We're always in the zeitgeist of what's new and things. There are great movies that stand the test of time.
Right.
And they are great for a reason. And sometimes people don't think about that. Like, old is old, or some people are like, it wasn't the time. So I was thinking, maybe it would be a good thing to, like, every year watch have a list of the best pictures of every year and just watch something of those years. Just make myself a list, like 75 were the best pictures, and maybe go away and see if I can watch those and kind of, just give myself, maybe 4 movies a year from a year and just watch them. And then you could do it 1 a month. Might be a good project.
Well, there you go. And that you could find some way to incorporate it in the show as well. It could be something we could do together.
Exactly.
So by the way, I'm just looking up Wing Commander so I know where we can find it. But
there's one VHS tape still existing of Wing Commander. Yeah.
Oh no. Oh, look at this. It is available to rent or buy on all the major streamers. So we're definitely going to do this.
But not streaming?
No, you actually have to rent it. You spend your $4.
I have to pay twice for this movie? What is this?
Guess, Todd, we'll use official Patreon funds for it because it's a Patreon production. So you can submit your $4 receipt to the corporation. Get your money back.
Yeah, it's tax deductible. Thank you, Patreon, for allowing that awesome thing to happen.
There you go. Or maybe I'll just, because it's $10, maybe I'll just buy it and then we can all watch it.
$10? What are they on? Crack?
Yes, they're on. It's called Crack Commander. That's a good redub it. All right, that's it for me. What do you got?
Well, I don't have anything as compelling as Wing Commander, but I do have a new show that is getting a lot of acclaim. It's on Apple TV Plus called Shrinking. Watch the first episode, and it's a really cool concept.
I have heard.
Yeah, it's very good. So Jason Segel is the lead of this, and he's teamed up with essentially. I'm trying to remember the name of the gentleman who does a lot of. He's one of the better comedy writers out there. Bill Lawrence. He made Scrubs and a bunch of things. So this is a coordinated effort between them, because Jason Segel is also a writer. He's produced, he's directed. He was behind one of the Muppets movies and things like that as well. And you know him from How I Met Your Mother, the guy from Minnesota, and so essentially it's about him and a group of psychologists who are all in different spaces. Jason Segel, there's a black woman, I can't remember her name is, but she's very funny. And then we've got Harrison Ford, who is essentially it's like the head of the psychologist firm, I guess, a group that they made an office. And it's all about Jason Segel, who is, you'll find out, he lost his wife in a very tragic accident. And he's essentially needs some help, but he's not actually dealing with his loss, along with his daughter, who is struggling because her dad is not helping her with it. And so there's strain there. And it's all about him essentially losing his way as a psychologist. And he still wants to help people. He just can't help himself. So this is really going to be one of those shows where he makes finally making connections and talking about his problems is going to help him help his patients and do different things. So the first episode is really about, he has a breaking point. It's about 45 minutes long. So I'm not sure if every episode will be that long because it's really a dramedy type of show. Typically those are all in 30 minutes. And it's funny because, Charlie, you love this. One of the people also behind this is Roy Kent. He's the big guy, talks kind of like this. He's a producer and creator for the show as well. So it's kind of interesting. So you're going to get a blend of a little bit of Ted Lasso, where it's that feely, touchy part with interesting characters. So I think people like it, but you did have, like, one of the initial characters is brought in as a young man who is dealing with anger issues. He keeps getting in trouble, beats people up, and Jason Segel's approach to helping him is a little unorthodox, and that's where Harrison Ford gets a little bit grumpy about it, because he obviously does not want to get sued and lose their practice. So but it's great. Harrison Ford is great in this role. You can actually tell he's acting for a change, which we don't get very often with Harrison Ford.
He's not just grumping.
Exactly, which is great. So I'd recommend this to everyone.
It's wild.
And it's weekly updates are out on the show. So I think it's going to go eight episodes, but it's definitely another win for Apple TV Plus, which is slowly but surely, what they don't produce many stinkers. They produce not many, but everything they are producing these days seems to be done with care.
The whole Ted Lasso thing, I feel like we'll get back to giving it another shot, but because a lot of people are just like, it's not great at first, but then it bounces in and this and that. You got
to watch the whole season, man. It's like 8 episodes. Comedies, you have to watch it. No comedy is great with episode 1. Some are, but yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. So
and ignore the soccer, Charlie. I know you don't like sports. You're not a big soccer.
I don't dislike soccer. I played soccer when I was a kid, just like practically every other kid you've ever met.
I know, but you kind of when it's sports, you like to get the sports ball thing, like a lot of folks do. So I'd say just ignore that, because that is really not the heart of the show. It's a little bit of a flavor.
No, it's true. Yeah. We watched a good chunk of, if not the whole thing, of The League, and I thought that was hilarious. But that was Nick Kroll, and
that's fantasy football, and you're not exactly watching that, except maybe the draft where they're just being assholes to each other, because that's what you do in fantasy football drafts. It's just basically ragging at each other, and I've gone through that many times.
Sounds like a lot of fun. All right, what else you got?
Then something that I said I was going to do is going to catch up on some franchises this year. I did it with Creed, so I'm good there. I've done my homework, so I did it just in time to watch the most recent movie. Did that with John Wick. John Wick, I really enjoyed the first movie, but I was late to that party. Then I saw John Wick 2 3 or 4 months ago, maybe longer, and I really enjoyed that. And then I'm like, you know what? John Wick 4 is coming out. I got to knock this one out of the park.
Yeah,
so
you
I did
wick it up.
I did wick it up. So John Wick, for anybody who doesn't know, and I don't know how you don't know, he basically was an assassin. He got out, and because of a tragedy, that happens.
They killed his dog.
He leaves.
Everybody
Exactly.
knows.
Well, yeah, because the whole thing premise is his wife, after she passed away, one last thing she did, she wanted to make sure he wasn't alone, so she gifted him a puppy. So it was essentially her dying wish to him. So that's why the dog means so much to him.
And they had to kill it.
Well, these bad dudes who see him in his car want to steal his car. They don't know who he is. It's basically ends up being like this Russian mafia group. They want to do it. So they come in, try to beat him up. In the process of trying to get his car, kill his dog. And that just creates a vendetta that he just cannot be stopped because he's essentially lost everything and now lost the one thing that actually brings meaning to his life. So that's where the whole thing starts. And I can't remember the total time frame for the whole John Wick films, but it's not long. It's like essentially 3 months.
Is it like a long it's like a long weekend of killing?
It's not long. It's not like 4 movies or there's years in between. It's
not
really
like the fast. You see, you enjoying this makes me feel like it'll be easier for you to transition into liking the Fast and Furious movies because
Charlie, I can guarantee you. I can guarantee you. Well, this one though. The Fast and Furious movies, actors aren't very good. I've never heard the movies are really well crafted. They're really well acted or directed. They are just like, it's like Cannonball the movie, the Cannonball Run the movie, but now more serious because that's exactly what it is. Yeah. Exactly. That's more like that where it's like, it's Burt Reynolds, but now he's replaced by Vin Diesel. That's kind of what I think of the Fast and Furious movies as.
No Chuck Mangione music either.
Yeah, exactly. They're the new Transformers movies where essentially they're not good, but you'll go see them because it's dumb fun. And so I get that. I totally get that.
That's 100% what this sounds like to me because I couldn't make it.
Except these are critically acclaimed
movies.
Are? Oh yeah, Charlie. People are like, the way these things are filmed, the way they're choreographed, these are amazing. The action sequences, I mean, no one even comes close. Marvel, any other franchise, they do not make action sequences like this that are practical, that are using real combat techniques. And when you watch these people, like Keanu Reeves is doing all of these special, all of this, and he just looks like he's giving it his all, more so than anybody else. And these action sequences are amazing. These are like someone said, these are like the new Hong Kong films where they brought something new to the table in regards to action sequences. And I think people don't actually recognize that that's an art form to make action look good on the screen, believable, and breathtaking at times. You're like, how did they do that? And it's amazing. So that's where John Wick, it doesn't feel like he's, the only reason you think he's like a superhero is because I don't know how he doesn't die. And he can continue to do this, but everything seems like reasonable from a person's ability to be very good at combat or something like that they bring to the table. Where I watched Fast and Furious, I'm like, they're doing that stuff. That's totally unbelievable. And it's dumb. And the characters are not good. But I'm going to watch a couple.
I just got a couple words for you. Fiero in space. That's all you
exactly.
need to know.
There you go. No, I will watch a couple of the Fast and Furious, but I get it. They are turn off your brain movies like the Armageddon or something like that. The Michael Bay kind of movies.
I mean, I have never heard critical acclaim about the John Wick films, but again, it's entertainment, and if you're entertained, there's nothing else to say about it. It's not for anybody to rag on it. And say, you got to be a moron if you like that. Now. No. If you like Tommy Wiseau films, I think you might have to be a moron to like those. But
well, there's an irony, right? Like it's that, like It's so bad it's good. And so I would say John Wick is, I would say, from a smart action film, it's kind of like Mission Impossible. I think those are smart action films, and I don't think people say like Fast and Furious and Mission Impossible are on the same level. I look at the Mission Impossible and I'm like, those are smart, really well done. Actually have some really good dialogue, good direction, good acting.
Yeah,
solid scripts.
And you have credible real actors involved in them. You know, you've had all your, Dame Judi, like James Bond films. Yes, he's going around blowing stuff up. But so even the Daniel Craig films really kind of kicked it up a notch, where it was just the suspense and the secrets and the this thing and the that thing and the betrayal and the scope and all this different stuff. So
yeah, the Fast and Furious is just a weird, like, it's almost like the Mad TV to SNL, right? It's like. Yeah, it's weird. But I would say 3, it was really cool. There were some awesome sequences. And that's really, the plot is the plot. I mean, it is what it is. And it is really all about John Wick trying to get out of under the they call it the table. That's kind of like the ruling class of the criminal underworld, the assassins.
Gotcha.
There's rules, and I just like some of the things they do that are very cool ideas. They built kind of a mythos too about all of the rules and everything, which is neat, and people probably didn't expect from the first movie that this would happen. And the actors are phenomenal. Isaiah Washington, which is Denzel Washington's son, he's in it. He's fantastic in this.
Oh, gotcha.
And Donnie Yen is phenomenal in 4. I mean, some of the great action sequences he does, and it's great. So I really enjoyed 4. I don't want to give any spoilers away. But 4 is the only movie that actually has an end credit sequence, and it is something I feel like it was needed to do as an end credits part to not take away what happened in the main core of the film. And so, yeah, I've really enjoyed this series quite a bit. But, man, at the end of this, Keanu Reeves, I don't think he can do any more of these things. He looked like he was struggling just physically to keep up.
They're going to put him and Tom Cruise in kind of the old folks action movie, do my own stunts home kind of deal happening.
Yeah, Tom Cruise still looks pretty young, though. But Keanu Reeves is like probably, 10, 15 years younger than Cruise?
Gotta be. Yeah. Because, well, at least 10, because, Cruise came on the scene in the early 90s where Cruise was. No, Keanu was early 90s.
Bill and Ted, right?
Early 80s. Yeah.
Oh, well. So, it's going to do huge at the box office. This thing's been like, it just gets bigger every movie. And they've done really, really well. And Shazam, you're just not going to compete.
It's been Shazam. So that's a shame because as we talked about last week, I enjoyed that film. But
I did too.
Yeah, that is too bad. So, well, all right. Well, I guess that takes us out of the Geek Easy. So it's time to skip out on the bill, as always. Get out that Air Qantas app. The Land Down Under awaits for us, Tina and the mutants, in the Thunderdome. So let's go.
Welcome to another edition of Thunderdome.
Thank you, Tina. We're sitting in the Thunderdome where the mutants have been gathered for a topic or game to be entertained. And this week, we're talking happy endings or bad exits. This came to my mind with watching John Wick 4, which apparently is actually ending, which is a surprise to many. I know, we don't know. I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll believe when I see it when, what do they say? No body, no, you can't believe it.
Well, like in in Star Trek last week with or a couple of weeks ago with Ensign Ro, or Ro Laren, who they brought back, which was great. It was a huge surprise. But then she sacrifices herself, but you just see her shuttlecraft explode. So you just don't know. No body, no nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to be talking about both in TV and movies, kind of those series. And then we're going to do series. We're not just going to do like good or bad ending of a movie because that's just like too granular. We're going to talk about series of movies or a series of TV, and did they end well, the finale as we would say it, or did they end badly? And some of these are kind of up to your I guess individual tastes.
They always are. So all right, so you have a list here from Screen Rant. It's 5 and 5 that they've lumped into a 10. Are we just going to go through these and give?
We'll go through theirs, and then we'll then touch on. We had some folks who also from Discord and Twitter who did there, and then we'll share ours. So we'll start with TV, and we'll go from there, and we'll do movies after that. So let's kick it off. You take the good, and I'll take the. Do you want the good or the bad, Charlie?
I'll go with the bad because I'm looking right at here. So number 10 or number 5 worst is the ending of Lost. Which was, Todd, I know Lost was a bone of contention for you because you were like, the show's not going anywhere. And they were also really pinched by a writer's strike. So it was stretched out and they didn't really get around anything. But at the end of it, we found out at the end of the 6 seasons, and they spent the last season doing this sideways flash thing or whatever, that all the characters actually were dead all along.
Yep, in limbo, right? They were or call it, what's the other term in Catholic faith?
The purgatory.
Purgatory.
Yeah, that's what they say right here. So, a lot of people really didn't dig on that. And it also goes on to say the plot threads like the smoke monster, polar bears had been wrapped up in some super generic and predictable ways. So people just really thought that the only thing of value in the finale was that everybody, they brought back former cast members within the context of the story to have a big goodbye and whatever it is. And that was fine. But to me, I'm like, how do you even really end a show like that? How do they get unlost?
A show based on mysteries where the mysteries were probably more expensive or interesting than the answers you received.
Yeah.
Which is tough. I did enjoy it. I liked it once it finally decided, hey, we have a plan and we can act it, and we're not going to have to continue stretching it out like the Walking Dead.
We've got a plan. All right. Well, we're gonna have to. We're gonna be talking about this all day.
Yep,
So we're
absolutely.
Gonna have to
So we talked about MASH how many episodes ago. That's fine. MASH, I feel like most people felt like they nailed it. It was one of the biggest episodes on all of television. After all those years, how are they going to end it? And they just did it with keeping with the heart of the show and give everyone a goodbye. There we go, Charlie.
All right, number 8, and I will totally agree with this, is Dexter, which was brought back, I believe it was last year. Big favorite show of April's. But in this, we found out that Dexter, after faking his own death many years ago, relocated to the frozen north. His birth son found him, and in the end of it, his birth son actually ends up killing him. Though it was in kind of a random, but random malice, as I recall, and it was just things just really went sideways. And again, probably could have just left well enough alone and not brought it back in the first place, but there we go. Not a great conclusion to something that didn't necessarily need it in the first place.
Yeah, I've not watched it, but I've heard that it is kind of like a weird mix of just didn't know what it was doing. Oh, okay.
It was like bringing back the X-Files, which
I just heard about him driving away on a boat. That's all I heard about. So
that was the end of the regular show. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
but it never ends. Never ends.
The
Wire is one of these shows that I keep hearing how good it is. So many good actors. And it was the final episode 30, not a traditional series finale, but it was the perfect ending for that show. It was on for 5 seasons on HBO. Lots of great characters, lots of good. So maybe this is a show I need to start watching. I know it's very depressing about drugs in Baltimore.
Right.
Yeah.
Could see why they would scare you away. So next worst, and I will admit that I didn't see this, but I think you have to work very hard to have a worst ending in a sitcom. But we've got a couple on this list. But 2.5 Men is next on the list. And again, I know that show kind of crashed out when Charlie Sheen left because he was the heart of the show. But then, it's when
was he the heart or was he the other body part of the show?
He was the heart and the wiener of the show. But yeah, no, the whole show was about, these two dudes are brothers, and the brother who has, a teenage kid or a tween-aged kid goes through a divorce and ends up moving in with the older, more successful brother. And they have a sitcom.
But did you hear how this ended, Charlie?
No, tell me.
Okay, so the finale would have at least gotten some points for its meta joke and self-awareness. If it didn't go overboard and have a piano land on Charlie Harper. So there you go. That's how it ended. Yeah, we can move on.
Charlie Sheen's character. All right. Yeah, there you go. Go for it.
Yeah, and then we get The Sopranos, a show I honestly say I've not seen all of it. I've watched bits and pieces of it. I know people love it. To me, it didn't grab me. It didn't grab me for some reason. I don't know. Maybe I need to go back and watch it in complete.
Yeah.
But the parts I watched, I'm like, yeah, it's a pretty good show. But this is one that was essentially known for it just cuts to black, which some people hated, some people liked. Maybe that's the thing where it's like life moves on, and you know they're just going to have more adventures in the world of gangland.
Yeah, it was great. We watched this one in its entirety within the last 18 months. I can't imagine. And I thought, what a better way to just kind of leave them guessing. A lot of people have said, at the end of it, well, this is what happened. But you know what? It all turns into fan theories if you don't actually see it on the screen. If it ain't on the page, it ain't on the stage, as Brent Spiner likes to say. So
exactly.
The next worst up is, and I will totally agree with this, Seinfeld, one of the biggest sitcoms in the last 25 years, without a doubt, ended with the entire cast doing what they do in every episode, which is something, morally deplorable. But because of the the statute that they got nailed on, the Good Samaritan Act.
Yes.
They were all tried and convicted and put in jail. But the finale took occasion to bring back bit actors and guest stars and kind of relive the best bits, like Terry Hatcher, and her boobs. They're real and they're fantastic. And it was someone put them on trial, and then they brought up all these character witnesses, and that was the finale. And then they ended up in jail. So it was. It says that there may have been a smarter way to get the characters into court than simply laughing at an overweight man being robbed, which was their crime. Not great.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I mean, Seinfeld that was a perennial sitcom of our 20s, of our teens and our 20s. It was so big. There was
Absolutely.
really nobody who didn't watch Seinfeld back in our day.
There was a reason why it was called Must See TV, and it
Yeah,
truly was. It
exactly.
was like everybody was talking about like the next person was going to be man hands, the
Yeah.
woman who smelled like soup Nazi. Always something to take away, and the
Yeah.
fact that we built up too much of how it should end. It's not like Seinfeld ever had like a murder mystery. It's like who shot Mr. Burns. There was not that with Seinfeld. So
Who shot Newman? Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. So a little disappointing, but how can you even live up to that? That was just too hard, I think, for them to make it more than it should have just been a standard episode where they go and run out of postage.
Right. Exactly. So, all right, what's next?
Yeah, The Office, the best. That was a show that I finally was able to watch and really enjoyed it, as many people watch it a billion times. Great show. But yeah, that show finally had, you get to see characters grow over time, and it ended with Dwight marrying Angela, the couple you never thought that would come together.
Right. That was great. And The Office is another one that we watched after it was over. We probably watched that within the last. It was probably one of those that we knocked out during lockdown or something, just because you're home every day and watching TV. So, I thought it was great. And really, it was like Superstore, which we just finished watching, had a great ending because it did pretty much the same thing. It flashed you forward and said, well, you know what, these characters all live happily ever after by doing this thing or that thing. So, all right, what do we got next?
How I Met Your Mother.
How I Met Your Mother. I don't know that I necessarily disagree, that I agree with this, because it might fall into the same. I don't know if it would fall in the same necker as Seinfeld, where it was like, everybody was watching, everybody was talking about it. But the entire premise of the series is. And it was interesting because it was a dad who is on the other side of the camera talking to two kids sitting on a couch about How I Met Your Mother, and it's stretched out over 9 years. So it was interesting. They filmed all the scenes with the kids within like the first 6 months that they made the show, because otherwise the kids would be in college by the time they were still doing these bits. So in so much, does that mean the entire series was fleshed out for 9 seasons?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, it's a show where I loved it, and then the last season is horrible.
That was the last season where they told a single story.
It's the wedding that never.
The wedding.
My god! And it's horrible because it's just so stretched out. One plot line, I'm like, this is bad. And then Jason Segel was barely in it, and because he was in some. Yeah,
I do love how you still keep calling him Jason Segel, is what it sounds like you're saying.
Marshall.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, Marshall. Yeah, sorry. Who is from Minnesota. Yeah.
What they land on here is that, it says exactly what you said. The season is set over the weekend of Bernie and Robin's wedding. But then we jump into, they get married, and then we spend a season, and then they get divorced. And then you do find out that Ted met the woman who is Ted had met the mother, and blah, blah, blah. And she was a character, and this, that, and they put it all together, and then she's dead. And then in the end of it, it's years later, and the kids are like, "Dad, we know you really want to be with Aunt Robin." Blah blah blah. And then in the photograph here in this article said he's got the blue horn from the beginning of the first episode where they went on their first date. So I thought that part was fine. But yes, that whole last season where you're just it's a joke that never lands, played out over 20 episodes.
It was too drawn out. I would like to finish it. I just get back to it. I'm like, none of these are very good. And that's like, ooh, do I just do it because I need to?
It's a hate watch. And
but I think it probably was more people didn't like the season, so they take it out on the final episode versus maybe the final episode was that bad. But you know what? Why wouldn't a guy whose wife had passed away, he be telling his kids' story about their mother? That makes a lot of sense. So I don't feel pain. Now, telling him to get back with Robin, why not? Okay. Were they a great couple together ever? I don't know. I don't think they were.
I have no clue. All right. What is the number one? This is a show that I have a close friend who this is his favorite thing in the whole wide world, and we just have not watched it. So what about you? Have you seen this whole show?
Oh, Breaking Bad. It's one of the best shows ever. Controversial show because, I mean, a chemistry professor or chemistry teacher in school gets cancer, doesn't have enough money. He's worried about his family. Then he goes in to become a meth, basically because he can make meth because he's a chemistry teacher. Does that,
Right.
and it's just all the wacky adventures. He essentially becomes the villain of the show. And that's the
Right.
hard part. Do you so root for someone who's really bad and everything he's doing is putting everybody he loves at risk? And that was the whole premise. And at the end, it was just riveting. You're like, what's going to happen? And oh my God. And it's just like, and I mean, this is one of those shows that really put Netflix up there because Breaking Bad was on Netflix and you could watch it and you could catch up finally because
Right.
people
Very
didn't
true.
have AMC. So yeah,
Right.
I think it's a great show.
Still don't.
It's
Yeah.
fantastic. I don't want to say anything more than that. Just it's a great show. It's well worth watching. My mom just grew on to watch it. So people of any ilk can come and watch the show and can really, versus like, relating to, more outrageous people. This is a guy, that could be his story. I could have a meth creator right next door. I wouldn't even know it. But yes, excellent show.
Could be. Oh my goodness.
Excellent
All
ending.
right. All right. Okay. So that's a 10. So what do we got? We're going to talk about some movies now.
No, we're going to go and now talk about the TV elements of the people like you and I. Do you have a personal one you loved and hate? And then we're going to do also the people from our Discord group and Twitter. So we're going to do TV first from our audience.
Okay.
So Charlie, you want to take a Soul of Stars?
A Soul of Stars, and I apologize because you are one of our chapter people, and it's funny, in our chapter Discord, I changed it to everybody's name and rank, so I knew who the hell they are. So this is one of our wonderful chapter people. Her favorite, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, came full circle, which I loved. Angel, the series, emphasized the message of the series end of Angel, and Bones tied up things nicely and leaving a note that these characters are still doing what they love, even if we aren't with them.
She really likes David Boreanaz.
Yeah, but she does echo that Lost was her worst, though that was more of the last 2.5 seasons than the finale, which is what you said, Todd. True.
Yes. And then we have Schloss Ritter from our group as well, from the Discord group in a Patreon. Newhart had the best. It was all a dream ending after growing up on Bob Newhart reruns in the 80s. Great pick. Great show.
Take. Like it. Yeah.
It was kind of riffing on the whole Bobby in Dallas. Bobby was actually in the shower and his wife woke up.
I did the Bobby in the shower scene explanation. We were on Code 47, and of course,
No one knew
both of my cohorts are younger. No clue. And at the end of it, I was trying to explain it, and Kay just goes, "You have taken us on a journey." No clue what I was talking about. Oh my gosh.
Yep. And then Ed Varnell, he's on Twitter, good friend of ours. He basically said the ending of the TV anime Gangsta is one of my worst. One of my best TV anime goes to My Love Story. I don't know either of those, but Ed will remember that when you have your best picks and worst picks for movie entries.
Yeah, please.
So we'll judge your picks by that. So Charlie, with those, what would you say is your best and worst TV ending?
Best, I'll stick in genre. My favorite is the ending of Ron Moore's Battlestar Galactica, because it came out of nowhere and and you just did not expect it to go in that direction. And it's set up a kind of a truism of the series, which is that this has all happened before and will happen again. Just based on, I don't even want to. If you haven't watched the show, I'm not even going to spoil it. But I would imagine you have, because you hear me talk about it all the time. But I really love that. The absolute worst, and this is not going to be a hot take because anybody who's a Star Trek fan would agree, the end of Star Trek Enterprise, because the final episode was a holodeck adventure that didn't actually involve any of the characters actually being not okay. And it was like, Rick Berman, who is reviled by a big chunk of the fan base, called it a love letter to the fans. In a lot of ways, it was a middle finger to the fans and almost just a middle finger to UPN because the show had been canceled. But yeah, it was terrible. It was a retelling of a weird portion of a middle episode of Star Trek. It was Riker and Troy doing a holodeck program to help Riker make a tough decision. And it was horrendous.
Oh boy.
Absolutely horrendous. Yeah, it was bad. It was real bad.
Oh boy. Well, they had the dumpster in the writer room, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. So, or just taking a dump on the writer room's table, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. Wow. There's so many you could point to, but I would say from my favorite ending, The Expanse, because that was a series that I didn't know how they were going to land it, especially based on a series of books, and got canceled at Sci-Fi, then brought onto Amazon. Was it going to land? Except for one plot line in the final season, I thought they left us wanting more, but nailed things to say at least, wow, that they brought it home and really gave us a place to really appreciate what they did, rather than having regrets. So I think The Expanse is one of the best TV shows we've had in years in regards to sci-fi from an original property that I think everyone should check out. Worst, I think it's probably gonna have a tie. One is because the show essentially got canceled and didn't get a real ending. That is My Name is Earl. It's a show I loved, comedy. I picked it back up and it ended. I'm like, what?
Yeah, right. Oh,
He
no.
didn't finish his list. And it just, because I think it was writers, the writers, I think
the writer's strike in 07.
I think might have killed it.
Yeah.
So that was like, and that's really not because the show wasn't good, but it just didn't get a proper ending, which, a lot of shows didn't get a proper ending. So, but that one really pissed me off because I'm like, what? Okay. But a show that I think that a lot of people can agree on was Game of Thrones, from just essentially so strong and just essentially got rushed because they had to, not because it was a fitting end. A lot of things didn't make sense and it just felt like a mishmash. And I think that became like a show that, and maybe Walking Dead is like that, where it ended. It just, you feel like that was a loss. But I just feel with Game of Thrones specifically, because I felt like it was the fan base still wanted more, and they still wanted, to really engage. They weren't tired of it, and it didn't run out of gas. They just wanted to stop doing the show. So I'm like, oh, and it felt like it. But yeah, so I'm glad that House of Dragons is getting a second chance.
Gotcha. Good
How
deal.
did The Walking Dead end, Charlie? I don't even remember. Good or bad?
They were the nemesis they were fighting. They defeated them, and then you jump forward in time, and our people built society back up. But at the end of it basically teed things up to go off into the spinoff. So it's like, and Daryl's going to ride off and then he's going to ride across the sea and be in France. And so it just teed it, and then to tee up Rick, and hey, Rick's still out there, and Michonne's getting closer. So it was a tee up to the spinoff. So that's
kind of like it, not really great standalone, kind of more of a segue between, or a branch between those things. Okay.
Right,
Very good. Now we get into movies. Movies are a little different because, they don't always intend to be more than one at times. Sometimes they're meant to be a trilogy or a quadrilogy or a duology. We don't know, but there's quite a few. So let's do this, Charlie. Looks like we've got 8 in the list. If you want to start, we'll go in order and go from here. This is their take, and then once again, we'll do our takes at the end.
Gotcha. Okay, so the first, talk about the Harry Potter franchise, if I'm reading this correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So from beginning to end, and again, this set is critical happiness kind of throughout. So Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone was from 2001, rated, I assume, at RT at 81%. And then Deathly Hallows Part 2 in 2011 was finale at 96%. So grew stronger as it went by. I agree. You're looking at the life cycle of this fantasy world, but you're starting with 11-year-old kids and ending up with them as young adults, and kind of everything that goes in between, but maintaining this strong plot line of defeating evil and how it has to be done, and taking down Voldemort. So that final film was filled with so many great, like, I'm going to finally kill Helena Bonham Carter or whatever, you know what I mean? So it was great. That was the series I think that maintained its quality, and I can't necessarily think of one of the movies being really shitty. I think it was probably pretty solid throughout. So I would say, as a storyline, probably one of the strongest, I'd say.
Yeah, it was one of those things. The first first two movies were really, direct adaptations, and from that they got on stronger directors, I would say, because Chris Columbus did the first two, and then they got stronger writers and directors to do the rest, and they kind of verged off and did their own thing because of it being a movie versus a book. And I think they definitely improved with each outing.
Excellent, very good. All right, what's next?
Yeah, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which I think, Charlie, you finally got back into. I know you're not a huge fan of it,
I did.
but Yeah, but I would say it is one of those things where it did improve with every movie, and just the final movie, all of those moments. Some people would say it's a little too long. It took forever to get the ring into Mount Doom.
All the walking.
When did it end? Did we know? But I think of a movie that was meant to be like lavish and just really take its time and build upon things. I think it nailed the job. I mean, so much heart and love to a fantasy series that at that time fantasy movies were not great. Think about think of Dungeons and Dragons. The movie was made around the same time, and that movie was a hot deuce.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'd still listening to podcasts about that. I'd love to take a crack at it. It sounds so bad. Okay, I know nothing about this next one, High School Musical, all the way out to High School Musical 3, which they made 3 films in a row, and they stayed relatively low rated. So we'll pass on that. Todd, you get the next one.
Oh yeah, those movies are not for us. Dark Knight trilogy. It's funny. I kind of disagree with this.
I agree with your disagreement because Todd, you've always said the Dark Knight, which was the middle film, was one of your absolute favorites.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Batman Begins is a really watchable movie. It is really a decent origin film of Batman. I thought it did a great job. I appreciate it more than I did when it first came out. The Dark Knight, I think that movie is more of a Joker film than Batman, to be honest. Bruce Wayne. Mm-hmm. I think it's really the focus on Joker. The last movie, it's a mixed bag. It is not the best. It's got a weird Bane, which I appreciate that Bane more so later in life. So I don't know. I mean, I think The Dark Knight Rises is actually the weakest of the films, but once again, it was trying to wrap up Bruce Wayne's story. So in a lot of ways, I don't think it ended on a high note, but yeah, I think it was fairly good for what it was trying to do.
Gotcha. I'm gonna skim because there's some stuff in here I think there's not really worth talking about. Toy Story, from the first film in '95 to the last film in 2019, really did maintain its quality. I mean, I can't necessarily think of and again, that's one of that my kids, older kids, April's kids, my stepkids grew up on, and my kids enjoyed as well. So, the last one met with critical acclaim for the animation and definitely the emotional resonance of that last moment. So, yeah, big time.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to go more famously, movies that ended on a high note, I don't know. I mean, and this list is kind of just all over the place with things we don't want to talk about probably. But I think movies that ended on a high note for me was the original Star Wars trilogy. I loved The Return of the Jedi. It wasn't Empire, but it was... Yeah. Ended on a high note. I mean, it was supposed to do what it's supposed to do. It wasn't supposed to be ended on a dour note where you've got threads leading in like, oh, who's going to live, who's going to die. I think it did what it needed to do, and it made me happy as a kid.
Right. Oh, my God. They got all the way down and talk about the 50 Shades movie. So, all right. You want to wrap this up then, and we'll talk about what our people thought?
Yeah, I will say this last one with Logan ending essentially the X-Men movies for me. That's really where it ended. I don't want to talk about Dark Phoenix or any of those things, but Logan is definitely a high point for the X-Men. Yeah. I don't recognize anything that came out after that movie with the X-Men. Yeah.
It does not exist.
Yeah. I mean, we want to talk about the bad. I mean, Charlie, you can talk about the original Spider-Man trilogy.
Yeah. I would say for the bad. Yeah. That started toony. Kind of cartoonish, a direct adaptation. I think it took a step up with the second film, and then the third film is a famous caricature of crap. In even those films, you've even got those characters behind you on your little screen.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about that's a movie where I think Sam Raimi didn't want to do what the studio wanted, and you got what you got when you got a director who doesn't really want to know what you do, and he has to do it. You get that type of movie, which is always a good thing. Keep your the people that are making your stuff happy, because if not, you're going to get something probably crappy on the screen. Pirates of the Caribbean, that's another one where started so strong. Oh my goodness, everybody loved these movies, and it's like I can't even remember the last couple because they kind of all were the same.
Yeah, exactly. Keith Richards shows up. So, all right, what else we got here?
Oh, yeah. The Twilight movies. I can't say, I will say this. The first one was okay. After that, Charlie, and probably more a reflection of the books, but man,
Yeah, right.
they got so bad. Oh my goodness. Yes.
All right.
You could go on to the Hobbit trilogy. I think that was a bad idea to begin with.
Yeah,
Kind
big
of
time.
a hot mess where it ended. Did not see the Maze Runner. I know that the era of
I
all
think we
those
saw some of them.
dystopian
Yeah. Yeah,
kid
right.
movies were
Hunger
all the
Games.
rage.
Yeah. Same
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Men in Black. I don't know. I kind of liked the. I mean, I don't know. Do you count the Men in Black International as kind of because
Oh,
it
with
didn't? It felt like more of a
Hemsworth
requel,
and Chris
right?
Thompson. I guess. Yeah. No, I'm thinking about it. I can't quite remember.
But
I don't know.
the other ones weren't that great. And then other than that, yeah, Hangover. I mean, we could talk about that. I don't even think I saw Hangover Part 3, to be honest.
I
But
think
not
I've
great.
seen it. I think I've seen them all, but it doesn't jump out at me. So, all right, let's wrap this up. We only had one
On movies.
commentary about movies. You go ahead, and then we're gonna do our own best and worst. I assume.
I'm going to give you one last. Well, maybe I'll make it mine.
Okay.
We'll go from there. But yeah, from Edward Varnell. So it's funny. From one of the best endings, Edward said Punisher Warzone, which I've never seen. Was that the one with Ray?
Yeah, Ray. Oh God, Ray Stevens.
Yeah,
No,
I never saw it.
Ray Stevenson, because Ray Stevens was the streak.
Yes,
Call it the
that's true.
streak.
It's true. Yeah, I never saw it. There was 3 Punisher films, right? Thomas
it was-
Jane, Dolph Lundgren, and this one, right?
I don't even remember the ending, but I remember I thought the movie was god awful, but teach their own.
Yeah, exactly. Then he said Avenger Endgame was the worst. Now, I would say this. Yes, the Avengers Endgame at points had some pacing issues. They had a lot to do. It was overstuffed movie, but they had to do it because it was the end of an era. And what are you going to do? Make it into a split it again? But I get it where some people would say it just was not what they wanted. I enjoyed it, but I knew it had some problems. And to you, it's like one of your favorite movies of all time.
I would say I thought it was an absolutely perfect ending that put a pin in everything it was trying to do. So I couldn't even imagine how it could have one of the worst endings either. But again, enjoy what you enjoy. But that is one of my favorite films. So
Exactly.
I cannot agree.
Yes. Yeah. It's a rare opinion that we rarely hear, but we'll go from there. So I'll do my best and worst. I think a lot of these, really incorporate a lot of those things. I would say ended great. Films are harder just because so many years go in between them that often you don't get an opportunity to really end on a high point. But maybe it's recency bias, but man, John Wick was great. The way it ended, it was really good. And those movies continue to improve every time. Just what they brought to the table, upping the stakes. So it's probably one of my favorites after seeing it. Of course, I may think back and think of something else, but that's one in my mind right now that they just really ended on a high note and kind of the only way it could have ended. So I'll appreciate that.
Yeah.
On the worst, I will definitely say this, The Godfather 3. Holy cow.
Oh boy, God, that's
talk about 2 of the best movies ever made. And, one of the first movies where the sequel people consider, the best, very rarely did you get a sequel that's better than the original.
Right. Big time.
And then the third film, you had almost 20 years gap between those movies. And then you had some nepotism with Sofia Coppola brought on, who couldn't act her way out of SAC. She's a good director, just not a good actress.
Yeah, right.
And just felt like it wasn't really, it was like, I don't know, Francis Ford Coppola wanted money or whatever. You just felt like there was nothing special about that film. It didn't bring gravitas. And movies had moved on since then. And it felt like he didn't bring anything new or an insight to the table. And Coppola, I don't know if he was a director where his best was already behind him, but maybe so. And that's where he was trying to just get some more presence. I don't know. But I would just feel like that one felt like, if you didn't call it The Godfather 3, I don't think people would have even known it was directed to the series, except for some callbacks and things like that. So that would be my big standout, as just a horrible way to end a series of movies.
Well, I will, and I'll wrap this up with my worst. And boy, I really had to go round and round about it. But going back to the X-Men, thinking about how amazing of a shift it was in that 2011 series they kicked off with X-Men First Class. Todd, I know that's one of your favorites. My favorite X-Men movie is Days of Future Past, which was a couple of years later. And then you were like, wow, they just can't go wrong. They were jumping forward 10 years every time. And then we got in the Apocalypse one, and you're like, oh, this is really not as good. And then we get to that Dark Phoenix and talk about just taking a dump on the whole thing. And I consider it not the end of the movie per se, because I couldn't even really tell you how the movie ended, but the end of a franchise, because it was a quadrilogy. There were 4 films, and they did everything wrong. They did everything wrong. Just from the obvious way they exited Jennifer Lawrence's character, or the way they set it up that, she and Beast were having a romance. So then was going to be a split with his character. And then they tried to make out, Scott to be a tough guy because he was going to kill Magneto because he hurt his girl and burr, 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 burr. And then they brought in, it was a Jessica Chastain as some weird alien. They could have made it the Brood or done something that was actually related to the X-Men, and they didn't.
Shi'ar,
they could have found ways to tie it back. And again, it was a very tired retelling of a very worn out X-Men storyline, which is the Dark Phoenix. So,
and if you look at my shirt right now, you could see my regrets. No regrets, as they say.
No regrets. So yeah, I would say I don't know, the McAvoy dynasty of the X-Men couldn't have been more of a wet fart, that film.
The sad part is the X-Men essentially ended on that same note twice. You had like X3 with Bradner, right, and I'm the Juggernaut bitch, to this, and then and I would say though that the First Class, the first 2 movies are great. The third one was a pile of poo. The second one was a pile of poo as well. So it's almost like they got 2 opportunities to do 2 really bad movies.
Yeah, right, exactly. There was nowhere to go but down after the end of that third film. So yeah, that would be, and again, that's just me kind of going off the cuff and thinking, as far as the X-Men, it was never something I read as a kid, but when the movies came along, it was the X-Men in 2000 that launched all of the 2000s dynasty of superhero films, and what became the MCU just a few years later, albeit from a different studio. It was that X-Men movie in 2000 that made all of us go, wow, they can really do it. And they can bring these characters to the screen, and we can, you can believe that there's a dude who's Wolverine and da-da-da-da-da. So maybe it was the lack of Hugh Jackman in those last 2 films, except for his super brief, super stupid cameo in the second one.
I think it was a bad script.
Yeah. Right. Yes. Yeah. Nothing could save it. Oh my gosh. So
yeah. Man. I was gonna say, Charlie, one last thing. Aliens. Think about that franchise. Aliens, and then after that, stop making those movies, guys.
Yeah. Well, we'll stick it with the Predator, and that'll make it great too. And that was one that I enjoyed, the first Alien Predator movie, and then they made a second one. It was just a gross out, and it was So anyway, well, this is as long as we've ever run. That's crazy. This is a topic with a lot of juice. I'm impressed.
Absolutely. That's why, try to, after 8 years of like new topics, what we can go. And obviously these are evergreen where we can go back to look at there's new additions. Right. But yeah, I'm glad we hit this. And I'm sure we missed a lot. And that was the whole point, getting it to the folks out there to give your points. And if you have anything after you listen to this, let us know as well. So maybe we can catch up on some great series. So that is it for the show. With that, Charlie, let's go.
Okay. Well, Todd, where do people find you out there on the webs?
They can follow me at Toxer for just my random voyages in the world of Twitter. But I prefer you follow at Secret Friends U for all the updates on what we're doing in the world of Secret Friends Unite. If you want to check out our Patreon and see what we're doing, go to patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite. Check out our website for everything there, including all of our YouTube content as well. And we'd love it. Give us reviews. Review us on all the podcast services. Let us know. I still have that code for Gotham Knights. If you're interested in that, you give us a code. You'll be in the running. Just DM me a snapshot of your review, and you'll be in the running for that code.
Second person who does that, I have codes for Star Trek films. So as soon as Todd gets that, the Star Trek films will move into the slot, but we'll talk more about that in the future. You can find me over on Twitter at the C3. Go ahead and spell it out. My lovely wife, April, and I do run the USS Grand Petoskey, one of the biggest chapters of the International Star Trek fan club in the world, based here in West Michigan. I also run Region 13 for the organization, which includes Michigan and Eastern Canada. If you live in that spot, you're a Star Trek lover, please drop me a line on Twitter or other socials, and I'd be happy to pair you up with the chapter in your neck of the woods. Thank you again to all of our great Patreons. We love you guys. So with that, I'm going to tell you that sharing is caring. Keep on trucking.
Be the hero, not the villain.
In a truck.
Mr. Wick, prepare to die.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. Visit secretfriendsunite.com for more great shows, articles, news, reviews, and more. Secret Friends Unite podcasts are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and other podcast services around the world. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, you can join us on Facebook or our new Discord server, or follow at Secret Friends U on Twitter. Please subscribe to Secret Friends Unite on YouTube and visit our merch store at tpublic.com. Just search Secret Friends